先验立法与识变万法，康德批判哲学与印度瑜伽行派的深度对刊 A priori legislation and consciousness manifestation, a comparative study of Kant's critical philosophy and the Indian Yogacara school. 一、问题缘起，对独断论与怀疑论的双重突围。一、The origin, breaking free from both dogmatism and skepticism. In the axial traditions of human philosophy, Immanuel Kant's transcendental critical philosophy, a system that defines the knowable and unknowable limits of human reason and establishes universal principles for science and morality without groundless, transcendent speculation, stands as a defining achievement. The Indian Mahayana Buddhist Yogacara school, also Citamatra school, a major branch teaching that all phenomena are manifested by consciousness, with no external objects existing independently of mind, takes consciousness only Vinyaptimatra as its core tenet, meaning all things are appearances of consciousness rather than independently real external objects. Separated by a millennium and spanning East and West, the two systems display a rare isomorphism in cognitive structure, subject-object relations, and the boundaries of reason. Comparative philosophy often describes Yogacara as the Eastern transcendental idealism, not as a superficial analogy, but due to deep resonance in their philosophical questions, theoretical architecture, and critical aims. Based on Kant's three critiques, Yogacara foundational texts, including the Yogacara Bhumi, Shastra, and Vainyaptimatra Siddhi, Shastra, and scholarly interpretations and classic analogies from both traditions, this essay explores profound theoretical nuances while clarifying difficult ideas in accessible language, presenting a cross-cultural philosophical dialogue. Kant's philosophy began when Hume's skepticism about causality awoke him from his dogmatic slumber. In his time, Western philosophy faced a dual impasse. Continental rationalism, clinging to innate ideas, attempted to deduce the ultimate nature of reality through pure reason alone, falling into transcendental, illusion false cognition produced when reason oversteps empirical bounds. British empiricism, trusting only sensory impressions, ultimately dissolved the universal necessity of causality and the self, descending into radical skepticism. In the Critique of Pure Reason, Kant set his mission to reject both the overreach of dogmatic rationalism and the collapse of knowledge from skepticism, and to secure a firm foundation for science, metaphysics, and morality. Yogacara emerged in parallel as a response to two extreme positions in Indian thought. On one side, the realism of the Vaisheshika and Sankhya schools, which asserted the substantial existence of external objects and a permanent self, falling into dogmatic clinging. On the other, the annihilationism of the Carvaka school and some Buddhist sects, which denied causal continuity and subjective unity, falling into nihilistic skepticism. Founders Asanga and Vasubandhu established the teaching of consciousness only, stating in the Vainyaptimatra Shastra that external objects are non-existent, while internal consciousness is real. They refuted both attachment to substantial objects and nihilistic denial, aligning perfectly with Kant's critical path of restricting knowledge and observing cognitive limits. In Buddha Nature and Prajna, Mu Zongsan noted that both Kant and Yogacara represent a critical realism. Neither recognizes an absolute reality independent of the subject, nor denies the validity of the empirical world constructed by the subject, the first point of convergence between Eastern and Western critical philosophy. 二、核心范式同构。主体建构世界的认知革命。一、Isomorphism of core paradigms, the cognitive revolution of the subject constructing the world 一个白泥式革命与识变镜像主客关系的颠覆性重构。The Copernican revolution in consciousness, manifestation, a subversive reconstruction of the subject-object relationship. Kant's Copernican revolution in epistemology overturned the traditional view that knowledge conforms to objects, arguing instead that objects must be processed by the subject's innate a priori forms of cognition, inborn cognitive frameworks, not learned empirically, including the pure intuitions of space and time sensibility, and the 12 categories such as causality and substance understanding, to be cognized at all. These forms organize chaotic sensory material into orderly knowledge of the phenomenal world. To illustrate this core idea, Arthur Schopenhauer used the classic analogy of a blue filter lens in the world as will and representation. Human beings are born wearing an inescapable blue lens. Everything we see is tinted blue. THIS lens represents space, time, and the categories. We can never remove it to see things as they are. We only know the phenomenon in the world as processed by our cognitive forms. While the thing in itself, noumenon, the true nature of things independent of cognition remains forever beyond our reach. Bertrand Russell supplemented this with the gloved hand analogy in the Problems of Philosophy. The subject's cognitive capacity is the hand, and a priori forms are the glove. We only grasp cognition mediated by the glove, never unmediated access to things themselves, perfectly echoing the phenomenon noumenon distinction. YOGACARA advances the foundational thesis of consciousness manifestation, the arising of the world as a transformation of consciousness teaching in the YOGACRABHUA, MICSTRA, that all existence is manifested. KUIJI, disciple of Xuanzang, used the traditional Buddhist analogy of a mirror image in his commentary on the VIJNAPTIMTRATSIDDHI External objects seem real, but are like images in a mirror. They have no independent existence apart from the mirror consciousness. This analogy, like Schopenhauer's and Russell's, dismantles the naive view of a separate, pre-existing object. Both systems break the common sense assumption that objects exist first and the subject passively perceives them, establishing that the subject's cognitive apparatus makes the world appear as it does. Kant's a priori forms serve as the logical condition of cognition, while Yogačara's alaya seeds serve as its ontological ground. Their terminology differs, but both embody a subject-centered constructivism.